Hey guys, Lorraine back with you with another card video. I'm going to be working today with another Simon Says stamp set. This one is called Freestyle Flowers. I do believe that this was designed by Christina Warner. I'm going to be using my Daniel Smith Extra Fine Watercolor paints today. I'm just working off of a sampler set. I'm going to be stamping with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I do have my images lined up in my MISTI. I coated the paper with some anti-static powder because I do plan on heat embossing. So I'm going to stamp those images up. I am using Arches Hot Press 300-pound watercolor paper today. And even though it is a hot press and it's smoother, it's still a watercolor paper. It does still have some tooth to it. So you're going to want to stamp it a couple times. Make sure that that ink gives you a nice crisp image and then enough of it lays on top of the paper so that you can coat it with your embossing powder should you choose to, which is what I will be doing today. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those out of the MISTI, and I'm going to coat them with my Ranger Superfine Detail Clear Embossing Powder. Embossing is my preferred way to watercolor. I just like how it looks. It's optional. You do not have to do this if you do not want. If you don't want to emboss, just make sure you continue to use a waterproof ink to stamp your image with. The VersaFine Onyx Black ink is a waterproof ink. You can use liquids with that ink and it will not run or smudge. I'm going to go ahead and blast that with my heat tool. Melt that embossing powder on the paper. So satisfying. I just love it. It's just like I'm in awe every time I see it. Get that all melted up. Again, you know it's melted when it goes from dusty and matte to shiny and sparkly. And then I'm going to bring out my board. This is a board that I use exclusively for watercoloring, and I'm going to washi tape these panels down. Taping the pages down to a board helps keep them flat. You're going to be putting water on the paper, and even though it's a very good watercolor paper, it's still paper. You put water on it and it will have a tendency to warp. So I decided to mask the wreath. And I was not going to cut out a mask with masking paper because that just wasn't happening with all these little images. So I decided to bring out some Frisket. Frisket, aka drawing gum. It is a liquid rubber, basically. You put it over top of your image, you let it dry for about 20 minutes or so, depending on how thick your coating is, and then it turns into a rubber coating over top of your image so that when you go and do an ink blended background, or like I will be doing in this case, a watercolor wash, your image is protected. Your ink will not seep under that adhesive gum that you have put over your images, and it will keep it completely white or whatever the color of your background paper is, and it will protect it from the ink or the paint that you use to do the rest of the background. I started off with the Frisket in a squeeze bottle with a super fine tip, thinking I could just, draw it on like I would do with my glue. That was not working well for me. I did not have control over the liquid. It was bubbling, it was airing, it had a lot of bubbles and airiness to it. It was not working the way that I wanted to. So I found myself trying to continue to use the squeeze bottle and then using a paintbrush to paint it on. And then I was like, this is just ridiculous. So then I just grabbed the big stock bottle. Also, I did switch my paintbrushes. I was using a rather expensive superfine paintbrush at first. And I was like, I'm not going to mess up my paintbrush with this. So then I just switched it over to a little cheapy paintbrush. So if you're going to do this, use a cheapy paintbrush. That way you're not losing it up, because it will dry and gum up on your paintbrush just like it would do so on the paper. So after I get that painted on there, I'm just going to let it dry, turn the camera off. I let it dry probably for a good hour. I walked away, I did some other things. I'm going to go ahead and wet my background because, like I said, I'm doing a wash. I'm bringing out a palette here. Some of these are leftover Gonzai Tombi watercolors that I was using from another project, so I'm just going to use them up and do a wash. Started with some gray, and then I decided I wanted a blue gray, so I'm just going to add some blue on top of that, just to give it a nice blue gray wash. I put that down and walked away from that to let that completely and utterly dry. Again, it was probably a good hour. I walked away and did some things. Pulled out a rubber eraser there, but then I realized that just my fingers. It was just working well with my fingers, so I used my fingers, just kind of rub it right off the paper, and look at that. That is exactly what you want. Your flower images are still white, so they will take the color from the paint. Your background is the color that you want your background, and everything is just perfect there. What I am doing here is I noticed when I was using that squeeze tube, like I said, I did not have the control that I wanted. It blobbed out. So not only did it cover the image, but it covered some of the outside of the image that I wanted to take the wash of watercolor. And since the drawing gum had dried all over it, it didn't. So I needed to go back in and make sure that I could get some of those little white edges around the images, get them with that blue-gray paint as well. Let it dry, come back, and we're going to start working with the watercolors. I decided to leave my coloring in for you guys this time. I usually tend not to. I am not a fantastic colorist. I do it because I enjoy doing it. And if you enjoy something, I guess you do it more and you get better at it. I don't know. Very hard on myself. Don't judge. But I decided to leave it in for you guys today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. I'm going to put some music in, and I'll see you on the other side. finish up the painting of these images, and then of course they have to dry. So I turned my camera off and walked away, let them completely dry. The card panel on the left is actually going to be turned into a birthday card in honor of my baby girl Alexis, whose birthday it is today while I'm making this card. So I was thinking about her while I was making that. And to turn that into a birthday card, I'm just going to be using one of Simon Says Stamp's sentiment strips. These sentiment strips are beautiful. If you don't feel like stamping, embossing, just cut out one of the strips, adhere it right to the panel, and you are good to go. I did use some of my Nuvo glue to do that to make sure it was flat. Birthday love. So that is actually going to complete that card. Just adhere that to a card base and I will be good to go on that. For the wreath, I am going to stamp directly onto the background using, again, my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Going to put Love You in the middle of the wreath. And then under the wreath, I'm going to put Sending You Happiness. That panel will be put on top of a black panel, and then that will be put on an A2 heavyweight white card base to make my final card. I did go ahead and put the tape runner directly onto the black piece. I did not want to turn that over and smudge that ink should it still be wet. I've learned my mistakes. If you guys want to know exactly what colors I've used in painting today, I'm going to go ahead and put that in my blog post. You'll find that over at laurebradisdesigns.com. And I hope you guys enjoyed my cards. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell so you get notified when I put out more videos. And I'll see you guys back soon. Have a great day. Bye.